All right, folks, it's been a while since I talked about Taiwan. There hasn't been, thankfully, not a lot going on with Taiwan, but I don't think that the conventional wisdom has at all begun to shift in the United States. The general consensus amongst the wizards of smart is that China is going to invade Taiwan. This is unacceptable, and the U.S. must intervene to defend Taiwan. Now, leaving aside the ramifications of World War III, this situation, which is being accelerated, being pushed forward, I think, directly by U.S. foreign policy. I'm not saying that that excuses any potential invasion of Taiwan by the Chinese. That's a different matter. What I'm saying is that coming from the perspective of an American, I look at what my government does, and I think, perhaps this is naive of me, they should do what's in the best interest of our society. And what's in the best interest of our society is to stave off the potential for China to ever invade Taiwan. We don't want to agitate China and say, you know what, China, if you decide to invade Taiwan, we're going to go all in against them, and, we think that Taiwan should always be separate from China, and you're never going to get Taiwan back. By saying that, as I've said in the past, they are provoking China, trying essentially to goad China into moving forward with an invasion of Taiwan, which China has threatened to do since 1949. That's how long China has been threatening to invade Taiwan. And guess what? It's never happened, thankfully, because it would cost too much. It would be too much of a hassle, and so there's not enough of a problem with the status quo to justify China incurring that kind of expense, both political, human, and financial. But as the U.S. tries to goad them into it, and the U.S. tries to agitate China and create a problem, if the problem's already here, if there's already a political problem between the U.S. and China over Taiwan, then China has much less to lose by going ahead and just launching the invasion. And that's what I've been worried about for the last couple of years. And I think that more and more scholars, now, are scholars really that great of an authority? No, obviously not, especially when it comes to a country like Russia. So I don't think that the China scholars are necessarily that much better, although I do think that there is more serious people when it comes to analyzing China than we have with Russia, where it's just 100%, bonkers, cartoon level of analysis. I do think that when you have so-called experts who think that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is more likely now than it has been in the past, I think they're correct. And as I said, our government is doing nothing to try and abate that. And so why do I bring this up now? I already said there aren't any new updates as far as this is concerned. What I want to do is I want to contextualize a potential Chinese invasion of Taiwan, which I've brought this up in the past, but I never focused on it. And that is the semiconductor market, which has been getting a lot of news lately because of the so-called AI revolution. And the title of this video that you clicked on probably doesn't even mention Taiwan. It probably says something like China will own, or China already owns, the AI revolution. And that's true because the global semiconductor market is centered in Taiwan. And all of this AI stuff is driven by computer chips. It's that simple. All of this AI stuff, it's computer processing power, it's electricity, it's cooling, and it's chips. Those are the raw materials that go into producing AI and developing AI. And so I think in the past when I talked about this, it was during the automotive chip shortage, and I was talking about how, hey, all these electronically controlled cars we have really are dependent on Taiwan, and gee, if China invaded Taiwan, I guess we just wouldn't have cars anymore, because in order to meet emissions, our cars have to be controlled by all these electronics. We don't have analog cars anymore. Well, some of us do. I drive an analog vehicle that really doesn't have any chips in it, and what few chips there are, I think they could fail, and probably it would still keep working because it's not anything integral to the engine or transmission. But anyway, the AI stuff is where the money is right now. It's obviously not in cars. I've talked about in the past how Tesla has a market cap, larger than every other, major car. I think it was larger than like Ford, Volkswagen, BMW, and a bunch of other car companies combined. Why? Because Tesla doesn't trade as a car company. Tesla trades as a tech company, which means that earnings and all that fancy stuff, profitability, doesn't matter. What matters is that Tesla is innovating. And so just like with these other tech stocks, all this AI-driven crap, that's why we see the recent surge in Microsoft and NVIDIA. And sure, Microsoft, they're a software company, not a hardware company. Perhaps you could argue that, well, gee, if there's a chip shortage, that doesn't stop Microsoft. Well, it does impact Microsoft because Microsoftware has to run on some kind of hardware. But maybe you could say, well, gee, Microsoft, they've got their own internal servers and everything. They're much less impacted by the day-to-day semiconductor market. Blah, blah, blah. Once their AI, they're developing their AI with their own hardware, they own their hardware. If China invades Taiwan, so be it. Microsoft has already got all their tech. That's not really going to hold up. You can't keep, all of these, all of this. I don't even know what the term would be. Server farms. I mean, is that what you would call it? I don't know if they call them server farms in the context of AI farms, AI hatcheries, because I mean that's really what they're doing in these places. They're training AI. They're training these algorithms to try and make them think. And so it's more of a hatchery, I guess, than a farm. Well, anyway, these are not like old 57 Chevys in Cuba. You can't just, strap them together with duct tape and a Craftsman wrench and get them running again when there's a problem. These things, you have chips that burn out, stuff that overheats, you have plugs that melt. But even if everything stayed in perfect working order and did not require, and was maintained well enough by Microsoft to where they didn't actually have to replace hardware, it would become outdated very quickly. I don't know the definition of Moore's Law or what it states, but I know that Moore's Law is the thing that says that semiconductor technology, it advances at like an exponential rate or something like that. And sure, you can have companies like Microsoft or NVIDIA develop all the tech that they want to try and create these AI algorithms. But if they can't produce the hardware on which to make all this reality, they will be knocked out of the game. And China will be the only game in town. And so what this comes back to is something that you have also heard a lot about in the news over the last couple of years, and that is trying to build up U.S. semiconductor manufacturing. But from what I've seen, this is not a quick process. This is something that will take many years. It is not something that just grew up overnight in Taiwan. It took many decades to get where they are now. And as we've seen with what's it called, Intel Arc, when you're a tech company and try and branch into a part of technology that's even just, it could even be connected to what you already do. But even if it's 1 degree removed from what you're already doing, it's very, very hard to just start that up. Intel decided to start making graphics cards, which, by the way, this is what AI is driven on. From what I understand, AI is they use these computer graphics cards, and that's what processes and it accelerates the AI, makes it quicker and smarter. Anyway, Intel, which makes computer CPUs forever, they decided, hey, we make integrated graphics chips that are in our CPUs. Why don't we try and make, really powerful dedicated graphics cards that are, an add-on to a computer rather than being integrated like we normally do. I mean, it's basically something they already produced, but they were trying to do it in a larger form factor so that they could make more powerful units. Well, guess what, folks? It didn't work very well at first. And it's taken some time. Now, I guess people say that the ARC cards are working pretty well now, especially for the money. But that's something that Intel, you would think they'd be able to produce that very easily, because it's basically something they were already doing. Semiconductor manufacturing is something that nobody really does in the United States. There are a handful of companies. We used to have quite a bit of it. But back when semiconductor manufacturing was more prominent in the United States, they were making very, very simple chips. Like remember the MOS 6502? I believe it was the 02. I know it was 65 parts, right? I think that was like the CPU and the NES. And then what was the other 8-bit CPU? I forget who made it. I think there was another one that was also American. And then, of course, there was the Intel CPUs. Those were, and I think still are. I think a lot of those are made in America still. So yeah, I guess there's Intel that produce. I don't know what percentage of Intel chips are made in America. I should look into that, because other than them, I can't think of any of these big guys who have major manufacturing here. And I might be wrong on Intel, because I'm not an expert in all these markets. I talk about a lot of different things, and I just talk about things that interest me on this channel. I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I just talk about what I'm thinking about on a given day. And anyway, the U.S. government and intelligentsia understands the problem that I've been discussing, that the U.S. is heavily reliant on Taiwan, a increasingly unstable country, for all of our tech production stuff, including this new AI revolution, which is considered to be critical to America's future. And so you would think, and who knows, maybe this has trickled up enough way to the top, and this is why we haven't heard anything new terrible things about Taiwan. The U.S. trying to provoke a war there. Remember Nancy Pelosi going over and trying to stir up trouble. The U.S. cannot afford a Chinese invasion of Taiwan, even if the U.S. sits back and does nothing, and doesn't try to start World War III over it. The ramifications will be severe, and the U.S. will certainly they might already be behind. I don't know who's ahead in the AI arms race, but the U.S. will have no chance of getting ahead of China if China captures Taiwan. I'm sure China would still want Taiwan to engage in the global semiconductor market, but they certainly would not allow the Americans to get the edge on them. And so it's a question now of how long it will take for the U.S. to become semiconductor independent. And I fear once that is the case, if the U.S. is being smart and holding back on warmongering over Taiwan, because of the very sensitive issues surrounding the chips market, I fear that if we ever did become semiconductor independent, that then our government would just see that as a green light to go back, and threaten World War III over Taiwan and provoke China. So we would be trading one problem for another. But anyway, with that said, I will see you folks when I see you.